Where do you think you're gonna put a tree that big? Bend over and I'll show you. You've got a lot of nerve talking to me like that, Griswald. I wasn't talking to you.
'Tis the season to be jolly, or jaily in these guys' cases. Most of the time, Christmas villains find themselves redeemed, or at least improved by the end of the story. But in the real world, would Christmas spirit really be enough to negate any consequences? Welcome to Wicked Binge. For today's docket, we're looking at the naughty list and sentencing Christmas movie villains for their crimes. Who better to start this list with than perhaps the most famous Christmas villain out there, the Grinch. The Grinch is notorious for his plot to steal Christmas, as you might guess from the title of the book and the original special. With his dog Max in tow, he cosplays as Santa in order to steal all the presents and decorations in Whoville. Really, the obvious is what you get here. Theft and breaking and entering are the Grinch's bread and butter, but as the story goes, he does ultimately redeem himself by returning everyone's gifts and decorations to their rightful homes. What's more, after this, the people forgave the Grinch and accepted him with open arms to celebrate Christmas from now on. We're going to pardon the Grinch and actually offer him a job helping Santa Claus out, because that is an impressive arsenal. But what if we told you that the Grinch isn't the meanest guy in Whoville? That honor goes to Mayor Mayhew from the live-action Grinch movie. Mayor Mayhew is one of the naughtiest kinds of villains around, a politician. But as if that weren't enough of a disgrace, he's also a total bully. But I hear you ask, is bullying really a crime? Well, I mean, we're making the rules today, so yes. Yes, it is, and Mayhew is not only guilty of it, but also of extreme psychological abuse for keeping the Grinch ostracized from the public for years on end, spanning from his bullying in their childhood all the way to adulthood. But we have one more less obvious crime to tack onto him: racism.
It's because I'm green, isn't it?
That may seem like a stretch, but come on. You spend your whole life segregating this guy from the rest of society because he's green and fuzzy?
Air, not pleasant.
Like you're any less unsettling looking? You look like a dog who refused to grow fur. That roast isn't enough punishment, though. We're sentencing Mayor Mayhew to a ban on all positions of power in Whoville, as well as substantial compensation for bullying the Grinch. I think 10 Christmas presents for every year he spent Christmas alone will do it. And may whoever you pray to help your soul if you use the taxpayers' money for those gifts. The Grinch may not have been out to actually hurt anyone, but the same can't be said about the abominable snow monster. Sam the Snowman said it best.
He's nasty, and he hates everything to do with Christmas.
Those terrifying teeth intimidate everyone around him, and with good reason. He's known to attack and eat anyone he comes across as if they're nothing more than bugs. Thankfully, Bumble finds redemption by the movie's end, when Hermie the elf practices his dentistry skills to pull out all of Bumble's teeth so he can't bite anyone anymore.
Oh my God.
Yes, really. Makes you wonder who the real bad guy is, huh? No wonder kids are notoriously scared of dentists, since Bumble can't hurt anyone, and further still, was reformed by his new friend Cornelius. We're going to pardon the abominable snow monster. We're also going to have Hermie give him some new implants because, geez, man, you could have at least used some anesthetic. But sometimes the cruelest villains are actually the most human, like Ebenezer Scrooge. Whatever incarnation of Scrooge you're talking about, it's hard to deny that he's a pretty huge jerk. He extorts his employees, forcing them to work long hours even on the holidays for little pay.
I'm sorry, Mr. Cross.
Having absolutely zero sympathy for whatever plights them. It's one of the most iconic Christmas tales of all time. Scrooge is visited by 3 ghosts who show him just how much the people around him suffer from his greed and selfishness. He redeems himself, making the decision to give his employees raises and be a charitable, loving guy all around. And the thing is, that's kinda all he needed to do. While Scrooge was certainly a jerk at first, he wasn't a criminal, and he made up for every sinful deed he committed, with the exception of being British. So we're gonna have to pardon good old Scrooge. But if he wants to turn into a duck to tell his story for future generations, we won't begrudge him that either. But what if we took Scrooge, made him even more vile, and took away any redemption he had? Well, simple. We'd have Mr. Potter from It's a Wonderful Life. We're no stranger to greedy businessmen in fiction, but hoo boy. Mr. Potter makes Mr. Burns look almost saint-like in comparison. Seldom has a man appeared so greedy and heartless.
Excellent villain.
But while he is greedy and treats people as assets rather than, people...
These families have children.
They're not my children.
In terms of crimes, he's no better. Potter is guilty of organized crime, using his control over Bedford Falls to steal money from George Bailey's bank to drive him out of business. His hunger for power leads him to not only drive Bailey out of business, but refuse him help and tell him that he's literally worth more dead than alive. Tack on some psychological abuse to his list of crimes, and you have a despicable man who's made even more vile by the fact that he doesn't face any repercussions for his actions. Our sentence for Mr. Potter is the Christmas Carol treatment. If anyone aside from Scrooge needs 3 ghosts to visit him to give him a redemption arc, it's Mr. Potter. Given his wealth and influence, Potter probably won't have to worry about legal repercussions too much, but this man needs a guardian angel of his own. If he learns his lesson, he can redistribute his hoarded wealth and power. If he doesn't, well, then we can redistribute his hoarded wealth and power.
Oh, George, now that's just what I like so much about you.
Hide your magical hats, because next up is Professor Hinkle from Frosty the Snowman. This amateurish magician finds himself performing for small audiences of elementary school students, and even in that context, his show is far from impressive. But weirdly enough, it's actually more debatable than you might think as to whether he's guilty of theft in a legal sense. It was his hat, after all, and although he threw it away, it technically wasn't in the trash can. But since Hocus Pocus was in there as he threw it, and given how he tends to manhandle him much of the time, we can definitely tack on some animal abuse to his crime. Also, first-degree murder. Yeah, quite a step up, right? It's easy to forget that, Snowman or not, Hinkle straight up stalked and killed a guy in front of a little girl just to get his magic hat back.
The minute you're all melted, the hat will be mine!
He only shows any remorse when Santa threatens to not give him gifts anymore. But given how he was willing to use his gifts, that might almost be for the better. We sentence Professor Hinkle to 20 years of prison, or until he learns his lesson. We'll let him keep his magic stuff though, and as long as he behaves well, Santa might just bring him some new toys at Christmas time. If you thought Hinkle was a funny name, look out. Here comes Burgermeister Meister Burger. He doesn't have anything to do with burgers, so his first crime is making us hungry with that name. But on to the stuff that would actually get him in hot water, legally. Meister Burger's whole evil scheme is the illegalization of toys in his city.
I hate toys, and toys hate me.
All because he tripped on one and broke his funny bone. He decides to take one of the biggest joys of childhood away from all the children in his city. This constitutes abuse of power for creating such a frivolous law. It's like the sort of thing Mayor Adam West from Family Guy would do if he were a jerk.
Hurra! Ich bin wieder Bürgermeister!
We'll also tack on a charge of child abuse, given how much he enjoys watching children horrified at his destruction of their toys. Ironically, he ends up arrested for reliving his childhood playtime with a yo-yo, but for our sentence, if anyone has ever deserved to be evicted from power, it was Meister Burger here. Impeachment followed by repaying all the toys he caused to be destroyed is the right call for this nasty guy.
Flee! Never!
Like Scrooge, this next character is technically a protagonist, but Clark Griswold is a lot less morally gray. The main character of National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, Clark is as sleazy as he is hilarious, and he's a pretty funny guy.
All right, kiss my ass.
An article by Brian Bird on Pajiba.com goes through every crime he commits in the movie, so we'll just be listing his most noteworthy. Let's see. There's holding his family hostage, since he refused to turn back on his quest to have a good vacation with them. There's reckless driving, sexual harassment. At one point in the movie, he assaults an old lady. Why does this dude have a Heroes Wiki page? We're sentencing Clark Griswold to life in a psych ward. He does seem to love his family deep down, so he might one day be able to reunite with them as a free man. But above all else, he really needs some professional evaluation before he hurts someone. Or, you know, hurts more people. Next up is a real gamble. It's Oogie Boogie from The Nightmare Before Christmas. He's definitely the spookiest villain we've discussed so far. The Grinch's brain may be full of spiders, but Oogie Boogie's everything is full of all kinds of bugs.
Oh, I'm really scared!
In the movie, we already know that Oogie is guilty of kidnapping Santa and even conspiring to absolutely torture him for what seems to be just for fun. He also has a giant robotic killing machine, so it's safe to throw attempted murder and possession of illegal weapons of mass destruction to his rap sheet. If that weren't bad enough, apparently there was a video game prequel to the original movie that revealed he tried to usurp Halloween Town and reshape it into a town fitting for celebrating Bug Day, his own, now obsolete holiday. Any way you slice it, Oogie Boogie is a menace, even though he's made of a bunch of bugs, we're sentencing those bugs to life in prison with no parole. Oh, and addictions counseling for that gambling habit. Okay, and a yearly Bug Day celebration in their prison. We're not heartless. Now, we've talked about some unsavory individuals today, but we've saved the worst for last. Our final villain to sentence is Krampus. This horror flick answers the age-old question of Santa good, but what if Santa bad? And when we say age-old, we mean it. Many Eastern European countries once told the legend of a Christmas demon called Krampus, who eats bad children. Instead of promising goodies for good behavior, they promised tales of death and despair for bad. That's screwed up, actually. What's worse about Krampus is the way he gets off on horrifying children, and that a majority of his victims are, as we said, children. The death penalty is the only sentence fitting for Krampus. I say we put him in a ring with that giant Santa spider monster dude from the Invader Zim Christmas episode. We'll see who wins that one. And on that note, we hope everybody has a wonderfully Merry Christmas.